welcome back to another episode of the PurpleDon Enlightenment Hour. I am Morgan, the PurpleDon, whatever the hell you want to call me today. And in this week's episode, sadly I couldn't do one last week because of all my adventures at Grimfest Horror Festival in Manchester that I've got a load of stuff up on that. I've got a Grimfest recap, a top 5 episode with Will Stevenson, who I went to the festival with. That's on HorrorHouse, and that went up earlier this week. I've also got a festival vlog that went up yesterday. And plenty of stuff to check out from my weekend at Grimfest, and that is why there wasn't an episode of the Enlightenment Hour last week. I was simply too busy at this festival to record one. But today we are talking something we've not talked about on the Enlightenment Hour before, or at least sort of a topic that we've not talked about before on here. Movie trailers. It seemed like there was 3 massive ones this week, 3 massive film trailers, and I know people will already be shouting, talk about Stranger Things trailer, Stranger Things 2. I'm not going to be talking about the Stranger Things 2 trailer because I want to sort of, frankly, I like to keep these things, stuff like this, around the half hour. If I added Stranger Things talk on top of these 3 massive film trailers that came out in the past week, then I would go over that, and then you're moving into TV. I do talk about TV quite a lot on here, to be honest, I think. But no, I am just going to be talking about the 3 massive film trailers that came out in the past week. Of course, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, Justice League, and New Mutants, or X-Men The New Mutants, or whatever it's actually called. And obviously, I'm going to start off with Star Wars. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I can't remember exactly which day the trailer came out. Now, no idea. So I just want to bring up a few sort of points that I feel are worth discussing, that I kind of want to just ramble on about, as I tend to do. The first point from the Last Jedi trailer, I'm sure every human being has now seen the Last Jedi trailer, and I'm sure most human beings have watched trailer breakdowns, so I'm not going to do anything like that. But I've just got a short list of just sort of points from it that I want to ramble on about, and the first of which is, who is Luke Skywalker talking about? When he says, and this is a question that has been all over the place since the trailer came out, Luke Skywalker in the trailer says something along the lines of, I've seen this raw power only once before, and I was afraid then, and I'm afraid now. But who is he talking about? Because as far as I'm concerned, there are 3 people he could be talking about. He could be talking about Rey to someone else, maybe some sort of Force ghost. I'd like to think Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi Force ghost, but that's just me. So he could be talking about the raw power of Rey, the raw Force power, and he has only seen this once before. Who was that in? Was that in Kylo Ren? Was that maybe in Vader? Was that even in the Emperor? There's a lot of vagueness already. And there was a lot of vagueness in the trailer, and I think that's what makes it such a good trailer. It brings on these sort of discussions, it brings on these questions that we will go into the film asking, and we'll find out. So he could be talking about Rey there, but you might be thinking, well, why would he be talking about Rey? Isn't he supposed to be training Rey now? Well, yeah, he is going to be training Rey in The Last Jedi for however long, we don't know, but there is definitely going to be Luke Skywalker training Rey in The Last Jedi. We already know that. Everybody knows that, who has seen the trailers at least. So this is why I think that this is a possibility, that he's talking to Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi Force Ghost, which I would just die to see, about Rey. And if you believe the whole thing, Rey's going to turn evil, which we will get onto in a later point, then that begins to make more sense. If Rey has all this power, this raw power, as Luke Skywalker puts it, that some of which she can't control, and if it's making Luke fearful, then this is a pretty powerful Force user. Of course, you might not be talking about Rey. You might be talking about Supreme Leader Snoke. Now, I think the comparison to be made, if he is talking about Snoke, is to the Emperor. I have seen this raw power only once before. I was afraid then, and I'm afraid now. If Luke is fully familiar of Snoke, Snoke is, the Emperor of the new trilogy. He's the same figure, essentially. That might just be a simple line that he says to Rey when he's training Rey. Talking about the power of Snoke compared to the power of the Emperor. But he could be talking again to Rey about Kylo. I think this is almost the least likely of the three, because the comparison to be made there is, I have seen this raw potential that Kylo, formerly of course Ben Solo, trained by Luke Skywalker. I have seen the raw power of Kylo only once before, and I was afraid then and I'm afraid now. He could be talking about his daddy, Vader. He could be talking about Vader. And of course, let's not forget that Kylo is Vader's grandson. So, yes, Luke is Vader's son. Yes, okay. But, the genetics are still there. If Luke believes Kylo to be anywhere near as dangerous as Vader, then Luke has a reason to be fearful. Absolutely. I mean, my favourite of all these is he's talking to Force Ghost Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, about Rey, because I just think that is the most interesting story point. I think that would be the most interesting story if Rey, if it's not just if Rey is not the hero of the new trilogy. I think that's the most interesting way to go. So I'd like to think he's talking about Rey to someone else. Maybe it's one of those weird nun-like things that are apparently living on that island with Luke. I forget the names of those, but I know they exist. There's a lot of misdirection, and that word has been thrown about so often in regards to this Star Wars trailer. Misdirection, but there is a lot of it, or there is potentially a lot of it in this trailer. So really, there's no clear idea what the answer to that question is. I'd like to know what everyone else thinks. Anyone listening to this, I'd like to know which you think it is. Do you think it is one of these three, or do you think it is something else completely? No one really knows. Well, maybe about 4 people know. One being Rian Johnson, one being Kathleen Kennedy, one being Mark Hamill. And then whoever else. But, yes, let's move on to the next point. Because, like I said, I do want to keep this relatively tight. And I'm definitely going to be talking about the Last Jedi trailer more than the other two. But I just want to make this point. I like that everyone stopped complaining about Snoke now. And the way he looks since this trailer. Or at least most people have. Because there's that shot of Snoke in this trailer. And the CGI looks outstanding. And everyone was worried, weren't they? Everyone was so worried that Snoke, the supposed big evil of the whole new trilogy, was going to look poor. He doesn't look poor. He looks excellent. I love the gold robe. Of course, the gold robe, an original design for the Emperor before his robe was changed to black. It's very early Star Wars. In the Star Wars development stages. But I like that most people have stopped complaining about Snoke now. I feel like I was never one who was complaining about Snoke. I've always kind of liked... I kind of weirdly like the look of him. Even when I thought he was massive and not a hologram. In The Force Awakens. I've always kind of liked that. But of course, he is just like a... I can't remember exactly how tall he's supposed to be. I think probably around 7 foot. But, you know, as far as... He's not a giant of a man. But, like, nobody still knows who Snoke is. No one knows. And I still like that. I mean, you can flirt around as many nonsense theories as you want. But Snoke's his own guy. I believe Rian Johnson has already said that Snoke is his own person. He's no one else. And he's the director of the film. We're gonna believe him. But I'm glad that people have stopped complaining about Snoke. Kylo Ren looks even more awesome in The Last Jedi than he was in The Force Awakens. And I adored him in The Force Awakens. I thought he was the best character in The Force Awakens. And I believe he'll be the best character in the entire new trilogy. Now, there is, of course, the final couple of shots of The Last Jedi trailer, which appear to show Kylo offering Rey his hand. As in, you know, I believe Rey says something along the lines of, I need someone to show me the right path. And then we get a shot of Kylo offering his hand out. And I love that, quite frankly. I really, really do. He looks like... I mean, he was he was sort of like a damaged, doesn't quite know his place kind of character in The Force Awakens. I think in The Last Jedi, he's just going to be coming to terms with the fact that he killed his father. I know we get another shot in this trailer that appears to show, and again, this could be misdirected, quote unquote, but that appears to show him thinking about killing Leia, his mother. We also see that also shows Kylo dogfighting. You know, Revenge of the Sith style Battle of Coruscant. In his little, I don't know exactly what to call them. I'm not an expert on Star Wars spacecraft. Basically, he's got a little fighter, and it looks like the start of Revenge of the Sith, which is a wonderful scene. So I'm excited for that. But I can just only hope that Kylo continues to be as awesome as he looks and as awesome as he was in The Force Awakens. And he has, of course, now got this big scar on his face, which is glorious. On a lighter note, as Mark Ellis of Schmoes and Collider put it, there is a puppy Jedi direwolf in this trailer. I'm talking about that weird ice fox wolf thing. Now, what is that? I know I did see that Christian Harloff, of course, Mark Ellis's Schmoes partner, seemed to think it was a Lothcat from that have shown up on the planet Lothal in Star Wars Rebels. So it might be one of those. But the question is the puppy Jedi direwolf, which I'm going to call it until I have clarification that it is a Lothcat. I'm going to call it a puppy Jedi direwolf, because that's just a wonderful term. Now, do we want a puppy Jedi direwolf, or do we want porgs? I think that is a question we all have to ask ourselves. Porgs seem to be huge. They're the next big thing in toys, in whatever. The porgs are there to sell toys. They are. Much like the Ewoks were. But I would sooner get a puppy Jedi direwolf than a porg, I think. And I've nothing against the porgs. People hate the porgs. People love the porgs, though. I'm indifferent towards the porgs. I don't know. That's a weird point as well. Finally, from The Last Jedi. Is Episode 9 going to be Luke versus Rey and Kylo on one team? Again, this goes back to the whole, I need someone to show me the right path, and Kylo offers his hand out. I'd like to think that Rey and Kylo team up. And then Episode 9 is Luke Skywalker versus two people he has trained who have veered to the dark side. And that just brings Luke Skywalker as the hero of this trilogy as well. And I would love that. I really would. At the risk of going far too long, I'm going to move swiftly on from The Last Jedi and talk about another hugely anticipated film for me. And for a lot of people. Of course, it's Justice League. Justice League, this trailer at least, I've heard, out of the three I'm going to be talking about, I've heard the most, criticism of. I don't really understand why. People are saying it doesn't look good. People are saying it looks too CGI. As far as I'm concerned, it looks like a Justice League comic book. And I just like that aesthetic. I've liked the aesthetic of the DC cinematic universe in its entirety. I've loved the way it looks. That is, I think, the standout aspect of it all, is the way it looks. And I don't think Justice League is any different. It really, for me, looks like the pages of a new 52 Justice League comic book. And it looks a hell of a lot of fun. I know people don't necessarily like that it looks like this whole red. There's a lot of red in the trailer. Like red sky backgrounds and just general redness that people don't like. I'm really not bothered about all that. Because, frankly, I just can't wait to see all these characters on screen together in what looks to be an incredibly fun film. I'm a reasonable DC fan. I'm a big DC fan. I'm not, steeped in all DC Comics knowledge. I don't pretend to have that. But I like these characters, and I like the way they're looking. We don't really know any story points from Justice League still. It comes out on, I believe, November the 17th. And we still don't know any story elements about it, basically. Pretty much. We don't really know. And that's a good trailer. That's what trailers should do. They should get you hyped for the film without telling you really anything about the film. That's what the Last Jedi trailer does. It asks these questions. Justice League does ask a few questions itself. One of which is, of course, we know from this trailer, we have fully confirmed the return of Clark Kent. Not that we all didn't know that anyway, but he shows up in this trailer. But the question is he the same? Because he, of course, died at the end of Batman vs Superman. Yes, he came back. We saw the little dirt float up from the coffin, of course. But is he the same? Is he still the Superman of the DCEU? Is he still the Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman? I know to a lot of people, they're screaming, no, I hope he isn't, because Superman was too dark in Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. I really like Man of Steel. I really like Batman vs Superman. It doesn't bother me too much. The tone of him. But I can certainly see him being a very changed character. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. If it works with the story, I don't think that's a bad thing either. And I think it will work with the story. Because we all know that the DC cinematic universe is changing its tone. And Superman becomes a more light-hearted character, and it suits the tone they're going for going forward, then all the better for it. Another question that I've just seen dotted around, and I just wanted to ask because, to be honest, I have absolutely no answer to this one. But I would like to know what people think. And you can use the hashtag PDEHour on Twitter to tell me what you think about all this. Does Green Lantern show up at all? Wouldn't that be just like the hugest, well-kept secret in, I cannot think if that is even a possibility in Justice League, just for 2 minutes, just for one scene. There was that scene in the first Justice League trailer with Alfred. I believe it was the end of the first Justice League trailer with Alfred saying something along the lines of something like, "He told me you would come, and here you are," or something like that. Obviously, Bruce Wayne has been telling Alfred someone's going to be coming. I think the most obvious answer is Clark Kent's come back. Fair enough, Superman's back. But is it Green Lantern? Are we getting that full Justice League? And is it Green Lantern? Because what a massive secret to keep that would be. I'm not expecting it at all. I'm not going. I won't be walking into Justice League going, "Yep, I'm 100% convinced Green Lantern is going to show up at some point in this film." I won't be walking in saying that. I think people would be stupid to walk in saying that. But if it does happen, and I'm not even the biggest Green Lantern fan. Now, I'm only familiar with Green Lantern through Justice League comic books. Never read his solo title. But I'd be very excited. I can see myself being, getting that sort of giddy excitement throughout Justice League. I know I will in Star Wars The Last Jedi, but I can definitely see myself getting rather excited while watching Justice League, and I can't wait for it. The last trailer that I want to talk about, and I know we are dangerously close to that half-hour mark, probably end up being around 35 minutes, but the last trailer I want to talk about is the New Mutants trailer. Of course, part of the Fox Marvel universe, the X-Men, and the Deadpool, and the Deadpool, not the Deadpool, he's just called Deadpool. But New Mutants is a horror film. And you know me. My other longer running show is called HorrorHouse. I'm a horror fan. And New Mutants has skyrocketed up my hype ladder. Does that make sense? Is that a word? Is hype ladder a word? It's now very high on my watch list, shall we say. I am more excited for the New Mutants now than I was before any trailer. I'm much more excited. I was aware that it was going to have horror elements, that had already been said, but I was not aware that it would be quite this much. And some people might not like that, some people like their X-Men mutant-based films to be nice and happy and look like X-Men First Class. Or, X-Men 2. The very good X-Men films. That there have been more good ones than bad ones, for sure. But what I love about recently the Fox Marvel universe is that it has brought out Deadpool and it has brought out Logan, two of the most different feeling comic book films of all time. They don't feel like the rest of them. This is something that I know people are fully, aware of what I think when it comes to the MCU. I'm a fan of the MCU, absolutely. I'm a big fan of the MCU, but a lot of their films feel the same. Yes, in more recent times, it's why I always say that Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man are my two favourite MCU films, because for me they are the most different. I'm hoping future MCU films, I'm hoping the likes of Black Panther and even Thor Ragnarok, which is coming out, next week, in a couple of weeks. I'm hoping that was, that's going to be just wonderfully different as well. But I've got to give full credit to the Fox Marvel Universe at the minute, because they made Deadpool, obviously they made Deadpool 2 as well. They've made Logan, and from this New Mutants trailer, they look like they've done something radically different again, and it looks wonderful. You have got Anya Taylor-Joy in there, as far as I'm concerned, queen of modern horror. By modern, I mean the last 2 years. The next big thing in horror. She's already a big thing in horror, quite frankly. But you've also got Maisie Williams in there, who, aside from Game of Thrones, has done a few small indie horrors herself. It looks like it's almost entirely set in some sort of asylum or mental institution, which, you don't think of this sort of aspect of the mutants in the Marvel Universe too often. Me being completely unfamiliar with any sort of New Mutants comic book or anything like that, I can't offer any input from any of that. I'm just going off this trailer. But this looks like it's just going to get so dark and twisted, and I love that. It's going to delve into the side of mutants that the X-Men films don't show, or even Deadpool doesn't show. Deadpool gets dark in the middle. That Deadpool's transformation is nasty. But I think I can see New Mutants getting really twisted and just really delving deep into the problems, or I'll say the transformation of being a mutant. I think it's going to have, these themes of, growing up and puberty and things like that, but not in a sort of young adult happy, here's the end and we've all succeeded in growing up. No, I don't think it's going to be like that at all. I think it's going to be as dark as Logan. Because Logan was dark. I just think it's going to be sort of the teenage version of Logan. That doesn't sound right at all. Logan for teenagers. That's what New Mutants is. Logan for teenagers. With horror. Because, of course, Logan was much more a Western than anything else. But I think you get what I'm trying to say, at least, anyway. I like how the New Mutants trailer has also got me very much in the mood to seek out horror-based comic books. So if anyone has any suggestions on good quality horror comic books, please let me know. Again, use hashtag PDEHour or comment on this video if you are on YouTube. Please let me know some horror comics I should be checking out. Guys, that is going to do it for this episode of the Enlightenment Hour. We have run a slightly bit too longer than I did want to, but that's fine. You can, of course, always find me on Twitter at the PurpleDon. Please check out all the stuff from Grimfest that I've done, the latest HorrorHouse Grimfest 2017 Top 5 recap went up earlier this week, and of course, if you are on the YouTube channel, you can just find the HorrorHouse playlist on there. If you are on Apple Podcasts, just type in HorrorHouse and you'll find HorrorHouse, funnily enough. If you are on Apple Podcasts, though, please leave a rate and review of this show. And if you are on YouTube, please sub to the channel for so much more of this wonderful content, if I do say so myself. It's not that wonderful, but if you like it, and I thank you for it. Like I said, find me on Twitter at the PurpleDon, hashtag PDE Hour, and of course, as always, thank you very much for listening, and until next time,